Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Arjun Kokanda, and it's been over a week since John Wick Chapter 4 hit theaters, and I've just been thinking about this franchise lately after watching this movie, just because of how much I enjoyed it. This is a franchise that is very simple in like the way it started off, but eventually just kept building and building and got bigger. And I think just getting to this point of how big this franchise is now compared to when it started, I think it's just really interesting because when you think about it, like when the first one came out, I didn't even know about the movie, and the fourth one was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. And the closer we got to it, I was just really excited. And this is a franchise that I really enjoy. And I'm just going to talk about just why. And I'm not going to go specifically into one movie. I'm just going to talk about the franchise as a whole because of the way it played out. And just I want to talk about every single movie and just share why I think they work as well as they do. Obviously, one of the biggest reasons is Keanu Reeves. He puts his all into this movies, and I think he's a great actor as a whole. Like when you watch his movies, at least these ones, like he puts everything into the action scenes. He does most of the action himself. Like some of the big stunts where he's like jumping off a building and stuff, and I'm sure that's a stunt double, but most of the actual action where he's fighting and he's like the actual choreographed action, he does it himself. And sometimes maybe that could be a weakness because maybe he's not able to keep up with the other stunt people. Most of the time, that is not a problem. He does such a great job of actually doing practical stunts and like actually us watching that, like it's so much more of a fulfilling experience because we know that these stunt people and Keanu Reeves are actually doing the stunts. So it's like so fulfilling when you watch the movie to see all this stuff take place, and it's a lot more entertaining too because you know they did that in real life. I am going to go into spoilers, so if you have not seen any of the John Wick movies, or especially the fourth one because that's the one that just came out, do not watch the video because I'm going to be going into spoilers about all the movies. So with that said, I love how the first one started off with the story of this guy whose wife left him a dog, and the dog died. So he ended up just going on a revenge and rampaging through everyone that was involved, or everyone that was trying to stop him from getting his mission done, basically. And I love the fact that in the first movie, like this is I don't think this is really present anywhere after the first movie, where they just build up John Wick as this threat. Like this is a guy that you do not want to have to fight because he's gonna destroy you. He's gonna murder you, and he's gonna end your life in the most ruthless of ways. Like the whole thing where he killed a couple of guys in a bar with a pencil, which also kind of comes back in the second one where he does kill a few people with the pencil. I think that whole thing was really cool, and because we set him up as this big threat, when you see him take on everyone in the first film, it's so entertaining, and you're just waiting for that monster to get unleashed. So I really like the first film because of that. But then after the first film, the franchise just kept building and building and getting more and more insane, more and more wacky, more and more crazy, and going into the world building a lot more. Now, the first one isn't naturally, when you watch the movie, it's not one that really warrants a sequel because the story is completely finished by the end of the movie, arguably even before the end of the movie. Because I do think one of the weaker aspects of that movie is that he gets in a fight with the guy's dad. I thought that was kind of stupid because like I don't buy for a second that John Wick would destroy that guy in like a few seconds. But also, like it just didn't really have to do with the plot. The whole plot was his trying to get revenge for his dog, and that happens like 15-20 minutes before the movie ends, but the movie still keeps going. So I always found that to be a problem in the movie. But in general, like it's a simple, straightforward story. You don't really need a sequel for it. But because they did lay elements of world building about this continental stuff and all these assassins, other people that they're like just hiding in the real world, I really like that. I think that's such interesting mythology to just build up, and you develop that as you go into the second film. And the second film focuses more on building that world and showing us more of this continental and like what all these assassins are up to, kind of introducing us to the hiding table where we don't actually know who they are until the third film, but like there's elements of them present in there which I really enjoyed. And having that world building is what makes for such a weird but really entertaining experience, because the first film again does not warrant a sequel, but it's because they like planted seeds and they did more world building as you go into the future movies. It's more interesting to watch, and it actually feels like it warrants a sequel instead of it just feeling like because the first one was so good they decided do that again. That's never what this franchise has felt like. It always feels like it had a purpose, and all three movies that came after the first one really like live up to how good the first one was. And by the end of the second film, because John is excommunicado, the third one and the fourth one just the stakes are so much higher, and the stakes just keep getting higher in these movies. But as you go into the third and fourth, like they peak, and at the end of the fourth one, obviously that's where it like really starts to show. But one thing I love about this franchise is every single movie basically takes place between like hours of each other. Like the second one takes place like maybe a day after the first one, and the third one takes place literally right after the second one, and the fourth one I think there's a few more days maybe like between those two, but really there's not much of a difference. So once the fourth movie comes out on home video, I think every year this would be one of the franchises that I just marathon. I watch every single movie in like one day, or just try to do something like that, because it's a perfect franchise for that, since every single movie just takes place between a few hours or days of each other. So it makes sense to marathon like that. And it's also really entertaining because it feels like a full fleshed out story because of the way it plays out. Like the first film is kind of the first act of everything. The second and third are like the middle act where some things are happening, but like we don't really understand fully what exactly happened until the fourth one, and how that all culminates in the fourth one. So I think all that stuff is very interesting, because in the third one they set up seeds about the high table, but we don't really know who the high table are. We don't know what they can do. We know that they're powerful. We know that they control everything. They're at the top, but we don't really know what exactly they can do. And even in the fourth one, they don't completely go into it, which I kind of wish they did. I wish the fourth movie was more of a John Wick versus the High Table movie. I kind of hinted at that in my review of the movie, but really it's against the Marquis, and I guess the Marquis is a good villain. Like he's probably the best villain this franchise has had, but I just wish we actually got to see a lot more of the High Table and them kind of battling John, I guess, and like kind of this conflict between them instead of the Marquis being in the mix. One thing I always did kind of find weird is that Winston just betrayed John Wick at the end of the third film, and then in the fourth one, all of a sudden they're like completely best friends again. They just forget that ever happened. So I did find that kind of odd, and the fourth film does kind of retread some of the beats of the third film. So I do think third and fourth film could have kind of maybe tried to do something different from each other, because the fourth one does retread some things that happen in the third film, which does make it feel kind of odd. But honestly, it's not that big of a deal. I don't go into these movies expecting the story to be perfect. I'm more here for the action and the characters that I like. So that's really what made the fourth one so compelling to me, and maybe arguably the best in the franchise. I do really love the third one. It's between the third one and the fourth. But like I think they do such a great job of just culminating in the fourth one. Now, one thing that doesn't straight up come to my mind when I think of John Wick is symbolism, but these movies have a lot of symbolism. Like as you go into the fourth film, where the whole scene where John Wick is going up the stairs, that's basically symbolizing his entire journey throughout all four of these movies, where it's an uphill battle to get his freedom, and that's what he's looking for. And the stairs, like the whole stairs fight scene, is literally about him getting his freedom, because once he gets up there and wins the duel at the end, that will give him his freedom. That will give him like kind of peace, I guess, at the end. So that's what he's been always looking for. So when you get into that final battle, the stairs fight, that's really what that's symbolizing. You don't really think about that when it's happening, but that's what it's showing, and I really like that about it. And also the high table, kind of like symbolism for in our real world, where we have rules that really aren't rules, that like a lot of the rules just don't make any sense. So like we're just expected to follow them. So like all that stuff, I think they really go deep into that. And there's a lot of politics stuff involved too. But I like the fact that it's not super heavy-handed. Like the symbolism, the meanings, the themes of these movies are not heavy-handed. They're just there as subtext. And if you notice them, you notice them. But if you don't, you still have a great experience, because you're here for the action, you're here for these characters, and they're always on full display, and they're always giving it their 100%. So I really like that. And obviously John Wick as a character is just very interesting, because he is a one-man army. He can take on loads of people and destroy all of them. And that's the kind of guy he is. And you kind of just have to accept that with these movies. But him as a character, as a person, his fight has always been to remember his wife. And I think that's just so profound because you don't think about that while watching these movies. He's killing people and you're having a good time. That's all you care about. And even me, as someone that loves movies, that is still always my go-to experience. Like when I watch a John Wick movie, it's him killing people, and I'm having a good time watching him kill people in really creative ways. That's what these movies are supposed to be. But they have themes that people don't really look at when you talk about John Wick movies. Like the whole theme about him just wanting to remember his wife. That's always been his goal. Like in the first film, he wants freedom, I guess, to kind of get out of this whole thing. Like, but that doesn't really kick in until the end of the first film when he actually starts to get more involved. The whole first film is about the dog that his wife gave him, and that's his only memory that he had. But once he lost that dog, that was gone. And in the second film, we see consequences of that because he chose to get revenge on it, and then we get to see more stuff because he once he got a little bit involved, everything just came over him, and the high table started controlling him again. So he wants his freedom back. And then in the third and fourth film, there's just hits on him everywhere, and everyone's trying to get to him. So he has to fight his way through all these situations. Obviously, at the end of the third one, he gets betrayed. And kind of betrayed, but like that comes back in the fourth film. But like still, like there's always been symbolism and meaning and themes in these movies about how John Wick just wants freedom and wants to remember his wife. And in the third film, that becomes very apparent when he's talking to the person in the desert. He says that he wants to live to remember his wife. That's his whole goal. So that's when you kind of find out that that's what he's been fighting for the whole time. And you kind of knew that because of what happened to his dog. But in the third film, it becomes a lot more apparent. And once you get to the fourth one, obviously, the whole loving husband thing, that was so emotional. Like, I don't use the word emotional talking about John Wick movies. That's kind of weird. But that really was. When, like, the end scene at the grave, where Winston actually listens to him and says loving husband on the grave. I think that was so profound. And I really like that. And I also love, I forgot his name, but Lance Reddick's character. His character kind of set the stage for what happened to John Wick in the fourth film, because Lance Reddick's character in the whole franchise, he's just been a great person. He like in the third film, he was helping John Wick beat up those guys at the end of the movie. That was really cool. He's always like been someone that cares for the dog, the John Wick's dog. That was also really great. And like he was a character that's really lovable, and you just like seeing him on screen. He has a great personality. And he's always just been a good person, but he ends up dying for no reason. That like he had nothing to do with anything, but he ends up dying. And like his whole thing with like Winston says, I think loving friend or something like that on his grave, and that set the stage to what happened to John Wick, where he says he wants loving husband on his grave. And I don't think John Wick really is dead. I'm sure we're gonna get more John Wick movies, but I still think that's so profound. And if they do decide to end it here, it's just such a great point to end at. Like because everything that he wanted just came full circle. He's reunited with his wife, and he also gained his freedom. He died on his own terms, really, if you think about it. So on a story level, his story came full circle, and his arc ended. So it's a great way to end the franchise, I guess. But if you still want to do more, I'm not going to stop you. I'd love to see a John Wick 5. I do find it kind of odd that John Wick ended up dying, but that was his arc. His arc was to get reunited with his wife, remember her, and at the end of the movie, he was remembering her right before he died. So that whole thing just came full circle really well. And I guess I know I'm looking very deep into it. That's not what John Wick is about, but that's what it was to me. Like when I was watching these movies, like I loved the action, I loved the story, but it's John Wick as a character that I was following the whole time. And I cared about this guy, played by Keanu Reeves, who is probably my favorite movie star. And because I cared about this guy, that's what made it so entertaining and enjoyable to watch him just go kill everyone. Because if I didn't care about him, I don't care. That's just visual noise. I don't care about the action. As good as it is, if the character isn't great and I'm not rooting for him, the action doesn't really matter. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on the John Wick franchise as a whole. Obviously, this is one of my favorite action franchises, probably ever, maybe my favorite. It's incredible. All four movies are top notch. They're just great action movies. Even when the story is kind of weak, the action more than makes up for it, and the characters are also incredible. I don't even talk about the side characters much, but I just wanted to focus on John Wick a lot more. But all the side characters in these movies are also always great, and the cast is incredible. So I love these movies. I think this franchise itself has been really great. One of the most consistent franchises I've ever seen. So I really like the John Wick franchise, and this is why. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. And also let me know, do you want me to do more video essay type videos where I kind of deep dive into certain franchises or just certain types of movies? Like I did one a little bit ago talking about Hollywood movies and why they don't really work for me. And I'd love to do more like that. And I just wanted to do one about John Wick just because this franchise has been on my mind lately because of how much I enjoyed the fourth one. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.